Welcome to the Normal Christians Podcast. My name is Bo, and as always, I say that I reserve the right to get smarter. And in this episode, I want to talk about something that I read, and I believe it was a few different places, but I'm going to quote from the Daily Mail. I don't even know what that is. It's based out of the UK, I believe, and honestly, it might even just be a tabloid, but I did source it in some different areas, so I'm not just telling you something that's completely made up. But what piqued my interest was that this was a story about a 29-year-old woman, and she got fooled. She got fooled by a guy, and the results weren't too good. So the headline, which is a little bit long, it says, woman, 29, had to be admitted to a psychiatric hospital after being left distraught when she was duped out of $200,000 by Tinder swindler posing as Israeli, and this is in quotes, Prince of Diamonds. So that was the headline. There's a lot there, and it certainly, like I said, it piqued my interest. I wanted to understand how this woman got fooled out of $200,000 and what ultimately happened to this guy. A little bit of a drama, if you will. As a matter of fact, don't quote me on this, but I think I read somewhere that Netflix might be making a little documentary about this guy, because this was not the only woman he apparently swindled. So I guess keep your eyes out for that, if you will. But this story was a little bit dramatic. It was kind of like reading a good drama, in a sense, just on one page. But the woman is Cecily, and I have no idea how to say her last name. I am terrible with names. Take a second here. I'm just bad with names. And especially this name is Norwegian, I believe. It is Fjellhoy. So that's Fjellhoy? Well, let's just say that. Probably butchering it, but I think maybe if I say it with that sort of weird accent or way of saying it, makes it sound a little better. So Cecily Fjellhoy, 29, a Norwegian graduate student living in London, matched with Simon, and this is an Israeli last name, so it's Leviev, Lviv. We'll just say that. So there we go. We've got Cecily Fjellhoy and Simon Lviv, who was 28, and they ended up matching on Tinder. So relationships starting off great right off the bat. I'm kidding, sort of. But yeah, nothing against if you've met your love of your life on Tinder. Nothing against that. It is a dating site, I guess now, which on another side note, it is crazy how Tinder has changed over time. I mean, I remember when Tinder first came out, it was just a hookup site, as long as I knew it, for a while. And then it kind of, I guess, rebranded itself as a dating site. So anyway, all that to say, I'm getting sidetracked a lot on this episode, but they met on Tinder. Possibly not the best place to start your relationship. But he told her that he was an Israeli millionaire who called himself, again, the Prince of Diamonds. So look, it's a little bit of a red flag, right? I think it's a red flag. And there's a few different red flags in this story. Now, to be fair to Cecily, it's easy to sit back and not be in the situation and realize there are red flags. But there are a few big ones that I think were there for her to see. And I'm sure as she looks back, she definitely sees them. But I definitely think someone introducing themselves as the Prince of Diamonds, that should raise something. I have been on dating sites before because your boy is single. And, maybe it's because I'm a guy, and maybe it's something with a girl. I don't know. I'm trying to give benefit of the doubt here, but if I ever met someone or they introduced themselves to me as the Prince of Diamonds, the Princess of Diamonds, something just grand like that, I think the antenna would pop up. I think there would be some questions that I have. And maybe I'm just a little skeptical by nature, but Prince of Diamonds, okay. But in her defense, this is what she said, that their first date included, their first date was a trip on a private plane to Bulgaria. And I believe that was from London, because that seems to be where she lived and where they met. And so, yeah, I guess that introduced himself as the Prince of Diamonds, was putting himself forward as this important person with this important work, and your first date's on a private plane to a different country. Okay. In her defense, I think you could start to think, okay, maybe this guy does have some money. Maybe this guy is what he says he is. And she goes on to say that they exchanged love notes over text, videos, voice messages. So he's not just flaking on her, just trying to impress her with one time. Like some of these things, they do go over the top for sex or things of that nature. But I guess the relationship progressed a bit. And this is a quote from her. She says, "This was the first time where I felt like, oh my goodness, I really like him. And it seems that he really likes me back as well." Okay, that's what she said. She was kind of feeling it. Meets this guy, apparently, is attracted to him, good first date. And she really feels like, yeah, this is it, maybe. He really likes me, I really like him. So things seem to be going well. But then red flag number 2 pops up. Hoyt, I'm just going to butcher that name, the Israeli guy, told Fahoy, I mean, I just got to go by these people's first names. I'm butchering this, right? But Fahoy was told that he had to travel constantly for work, and it was hard for him to visit her in London due to threats from working in the diamond business. And that was reported by Nightline, because apparently this story has gotten some traction. So red flag number 2 was old Cecily was told by her boo here that he couldn't be around her a lot. You know, they still communicate and stuff, but he couldn't just visit her often in London because, you know, he's got a big time job. He's got to travel for business. So, kind of red flaggy there, but I think it really becomes a red flag when he says that it's, you know, lots of threats to him because of his diamond business. Again, he's the Prince of Diamonds, if you will. So I think she missed another red flag there. I think any time long distance is difficult, you certainly have to have a level of trust, but there's a few different things I think that should put up the radar. That sort of money, that sort of claim, and all of a sudden you have to be, you know, you can't visit a lot, all that sort of stuff. But if you want to give her the benefit of the doubt, fine, I understand. You know, you're feeling this thing out, new relationship, all good. So maybe you could say these are minor inconveniences, maybe minor red flags. But here's the next thing where it goes from minor to major. This guy, the Prince of Diamonds, if you will, asked old Cecily to open a line of credit in her name so he could pay his expenses to protect himself from, quote unquote, his enemies. And this is it. This is the big red flag. And the article went on to say the conman first asked Fahoy, or Cecily, to take out a line of credit for him in her name just 4 weeks into the relationship. So this red flag went to being, you know, like a red, I don't even know, tarp. What's a huge flag? At a loss for words, what's bigger than a flag? 4 weeks into the relationship, a line of credit in her name, claiming that it was a security measure due to threats against him. So Cecily told the old Prince of Diamond, or Cecily was told apparently by the Prince of Diamonds, that he promised to pay her back. But, the article says, as the weeks rolled by, her balance went up and up and up. And, I mean, you can clearly see what the game is here, right? Meets this guy, all good, amazing first date, you know, connecting, I'm sure, a few times. Maybe it was just that once, but I'm sure they connected at least once or twice more. Exchanging communication, it's love, it's good. He's the Prince of Diamonds. A month in, 4 weeks in, though, he tells her it's time to open up a line of credit in her name, give him access to it, because he has to pay, he has to pay for security, different things for his job. which should be a tremendous red flag. Again, this is the big one. In general, anytime someone that's not your spouse or anything like that, even with your spouse, you should be very careful. Anybody just using your name or your information, whatever it is, to open up lines of credit or just use your money once you have the line of credit, whatever that sort of thing is, especially when the individual claims to be rich. We got the old Prince of Diamonds here. He's got to travel, so he's a big deal for work, and he's got threats against him, and he needs some random girl he met a month ago to pay for his security. I get that he said he would pay her back, but it's bad. It's bad. It's a bad hustle right there. And the article goes on, the quote-unquote millionaire, because of course he put himself forward as having a lot of money, turned out to be Shimon Hood. I don't even know. Okay, another name here. So, old boy that I mentioned earlier, Simon Lviv or whatever, had a completely different name, which makes sense because he's a con man. I'm just going to refer to him as the Prince of Diamonds. This guy had a completely different name, and he was a convicted con man who was swindling old Cecily, the Scandinavian woman, out of millions of dollars. Well, actually, swindled her out of a lot of money, but was swindling other Scandinavian women out of millions of dollars. So Cecily was not the only person getting swindled by this guy. And so Cecily was so distraught after she was swindled $200,000 that she had to be admitted to a psychiatric hospital. And this is a quote from her. I had to be put in a hospital, a psychiatric ward, because of suicidal thoughts, because I thought my life was over. Like, I didn't see a way out, she said. You've lost your boyfriend, but he didn't just dump you. He never existed. He was never your boyfriend, which is the truth. He was simply using her. And the old Prince of Diamonds, he was arrested in Greece in July, and Israel wanted him extradited on charges of theft, forgery, and fraud. And this was at the very end of the article, and it just goes to show the con man that he is and the game that he was running across, unfortunately, so many women. As he was arrested, standing outside of the police station, he claimed that he would be a quote-unquote free man within a month as he kissed the woman and told her that, quote, nothing she's read about him is true, end quote. So at the very end, he is still hustling. He's got a woman with him as he's getting arrested, as he's outside of a police station, keeping the con going, telling this woman that it's all made up. And I'm sure he's using the thing about his enemies and the protection and all that sort of stuff. So that's the article. A little bit of a drama. And I do want to be kind to Cecily and all the other women in the sense that, look, this was a bad one. We all read these bad stories every now and then, and I think we wonder, well, how could this person do that? Or how could they be in that position? How could they be so dumb or this or that, whatever we want to say. But here's the deal. I do think that we're all susceptible to this type of thing. And I think we're susceptible for many different reasons, but I want to highlight two that I think are important for us. I think the first is that we all hate admitting mistakes. And I think that this is really important, especially when we're in a situation where we're getting conned or fooled or lied to, or things just aren't like we thought that they were or that we wanted them to be, is that we just hate admitting mistakes. And I think one part of this whole thing at the front end is we convince ourselves that we are too smart to fall for something like either this story or like other stories that we've seen or other situations. So before we even get into that situation, we set ourselves up for failure by convincing ourselves, I'm just too smart to fall for this sort of situation. I would never make that mistake. I would never do that sort of thing. But unfortunately, when we think that about ourselves, when we're so prideful to think we could never be duped in that sort of way, well, we set ourselves up. And if we ever get in a situation like that, if we ever get into a place where we're getting duped, conned, defrauded, whatever it is, it makes it really hard to admit that we made a mistake. It's just tough to say, I may have thought I couldn't be in this position, but I am in this position. I was convinced I wouldn't make these sort of mistakes, but here I am making this sort of mistake or making these mistakes. I think that's a big part of how we can find ourselves in this situation, because a lot of good, honest people find themselves in places where they're about to get duped or could get duped. And then it's having the honesty and the courage to admit, I'm making a mistake. This isn't what I thought it was. I didn't think maybe I could be this person. But it looks like I am. It looks like I did get fooled and I need to cut my losses or just admit I made a mistake and get help. I know this was years ago. Years ago. I was in my undergrad. I was trying to do some math real fast, but it was a while ago. Let's just put it like that. Somewhere south of 20 years, but above 15. I don't know, somewhere in that range. So a long time ago, I remember I was selling a computer. I was in my undergrad at college, and it was just an auction on eBay, I think, and I got a message that said, hey, I really need this computer for XYZ, and I need it now. I'll pay you this amount, even over what you're asking, to hurry up and get it, ship it to me, and all that. And I was thrilled. I was ready to go. Yes, I would love to help you, all this sort of stuff. And as I'm telling this story, I'm sure that if you're listening, you've probably heard this sort of thing before. But actually, at the time, not only was I younger and in college, but things like social media didn't exist at the time. As a matter of fact, around that time, Facebook was just college students very early on. And sure, the internet was clearly there. It was around for a while. And so you were able to look at the internet and find out that this was a scam. And as a matter of fact, that's what I did. Thank the Lord, right before I shipped it, I decided to do a little research and found that that this was a scam, and I was able to back out. But I was fooled for a time. And again, I consider myself a smart guy, pretty reasonable. Certainly I question things. I'm always questioning things. But I was duped because a little extra money, it put me in that place. And you can imagine someone older, someone who doesn't have experience, someone who may not have heard about these different things, and then you throw love into the equation, and you start having feelings for someone, it becomes real dangerous. Again, we could think, I'll never do that. But if we're so prideful, in that sort of sense, we could fall into it. And if we're prideful to where we can't admit our mistakes, we could just go deeper down the hole, or we could continue being fooled, or we can not trust our instincts and think, no, this can't be it. And I think that's a big part of it, is pride. It's this pride that, again, I'm smart enough. I would never do that. I surely can admit my mistakes when I'm wrong. But do we? How easy is it for us to admit our mistakes? How easy is it for us to be able to tell people, yeah, I really got fooled. And then as we say it back, we might be, this is so dumb. How could I ever think that? But in the moment, we just have to put our pride aside and really be honest, do those sort of things. But pride gets in our way a lot. And under this, about admitting our mistakes, is sometimes I think we could perceive what's happening, or that this is too good to be true, or whatever it is. But depending on the situation, especially in relationships at times, sometimes we can fear what comes after we pull the plug or we go for this thing. The unknown at times is very scary, maybe even more scary than the place that we're in. At least that's what we perceive it at the time. So, and then add on to that even another aspect where we think we could fix our own problem, or we could turn it around, whether it be a relationship or whether it be a situation. And this all adds to this difficulty of admitting we made a mistake and being able to get help or cut our losses or whatever it is. Admitting we made a mistake, or that we could be fooled, or we could be that person, is certainly, I think, one of the big reasons we're all susceptible to this sort of thing, because we convince ourselves we're not. And then if we're in it or we're close, it's hard to admit when we make a mistake. And here's number two. Here's another reason why I think, the last reason why I think we're all really susceptible to this. And there's many reasons, but these are two big ones, I think. And I think what's so alluring about so much of this is the promise of what could be instead of what it likely is or will be, if that makes sense. It's this promise, this hope for what something could be, what could come out of it, this situation, this relationship, this deal, that sort of thing. It seems great. All I have to do is this, or trust this person, or do this sort of thing. And I could get that. I could go there. It could be this thing. And that, at times, makes us susceptible because it sounds so good, and it could be so good. And what that does is that draws us in, and it really clouds our vision and our judgment over what that thing likely is, or what it might end up being, right? In a sense, you could almost think of it as gambling. I know so many of us that are in this situation, we aren't gambling, but in a way, it kind of hits us like gambling, if you think about it, because what is gambling? Oh, I put a little bit of money down here, and I feel like most of us at this point realize that there's a reason casinos make money. There's a reason they're so successful. Odds are against you. Odds are for the house in whatever you're playing, or even the lottery. It doesn't matter what it is. Sometimes the odds are astronomical, but we'll still do it. Why? Sometimes it's just fun. Sometimes you're just there and you want to do it. Sure, that's fine. But for still a lot of people, they'll keep doing it because of what it could be. Not what it is. The reality of the odds, or the reality of, if this turns out like it's probably going to turn out, I'll lose all this money, being in the present. But the promise of what it could be, the hope of what it might be. And so, again, this is gambling in at least one sense. Take the lottery. I just mentioned that, but that's a perfect example of, especially when the number gets higher. Hey, I'm going to make a joke. Don't be offended on this if you play the lottery, but I call the lottery the dumb tax, in the sense that the odds are so astronomical that you're going to win the lottery that giving money to it is in essence a tax on being dumb. So I'm sorry don't be offended. It's just a joke. And to be honest, I do have a pact with myself that when the lottery gets right at or over $1 billion, your boy's going to play. I will pay the dumb tax to throw my name in the hat and have almost no shot, but still have the smallest microscopic shot of becoming a billionaire, or at least get a few $100 million. I will pay the couple bucks or few bucks for that. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, all that to say, I joke with the lotto being the dumb tax because, again, if that's your thing or you like it for the side, whatever, but there's almost no chance you're going to get a significant amount of money, or that you'll make your money back that you're spending in this game over the long term. But we still do it. Why? Because we could get those millions of dollars. We could get this, that sort of thing. So this whole thing plays out in life in a lot of different ways, right? It's smarter, of course, to not play the lottery or to not gamble your money away, but if you could just get lucky this one time, if you could just win this thing, and it translates in a very real way to relationships. Maybe this situation seems way too good to be true with this guy or this girl. And if you sat down and thought about it honestly, you would realize there's something wrong, something's not right, red flags are going up, but it could be amazing. This could be my story, my fairy tale ending. This could be a storybook sort of situation. And so we convince ourselves, let's roll with it. Let's keep going. Let's throw money at this. Instead of cutting it off, meaning we have this mistake, let's keep chasing the promise of what it could be, the hope of what the potential is. And not in an exact way, but I like this. I'm kind of on a Proverbs kick right now, so it just applies. But as Christians, I mean, we're warned in many different ways, but I like this verse, Proverbs 13:11. It says, wealth gained hastily, or a different way to translate it, by fraud, will dwindle. But whoever gathers little by little will increase it. Now, this is clearly talking about money, and it's talking about it being gained hastily. And it's funny, this is actually really wise when it comes to the lotto, because there are tons of examples of lottery winners who win all this money and then go bankrupt or end up in worse situations than they were before. So shout out to the wisdom of Proverbs. But whoever gains wealth little by little will increase it. And again, this is talking about money, but let's apply it to relationships or to our situations or whatever it is, in the sense that we all want the quick way to the end. We all want the shortcut. We all want that boost right to the quick path again, all that sort of thing, when more often than not, the quick path is not the right path. The quick path leads to issues. Trying to cut to the end or find the shortcut in life, whatever that is, it's probably not the path you want to go, not the way you want to go. But in a sense, I think this verse could be applied to, look, just taking the steps, putting in the work, grinding, whether it be work, whether it be with money, whether it be with relationships, in the sense of relationships take work. It's a work. Marriage is work. All these things, it takes time. So you have to put in. It's not just going to be great. You have to put in the work. You have to do these things. That is the wise path. That is how we increase. And again, going to this situation, a month in, he's asking for a line of credit and all these sort of things like that. This red flags. And if I'm not in her mindset, but clearly she said in one of her quotes how distraught she was. She said she didn't see a way out once she was in, and she lost her boyfriend. But the bigger part is that he never existed. It was all a lie. So she got so deep in this game, in this con, she couldn't see a way out. And it made her realize she was never dating this guy. He was using her. And so in a way, again, it's not a direct connection, but I love the wisdom of anything quick, anything that seems like a shortcut, anything that's too good to be true, it often and most times is. The success in life, the increase we see in life takes time, takes work, takes effort, takes energy, takes the whole sort of things. So thinking we could get this great thing, whatever it is, can lead us to making decisions or doing things that we wouldn't otherwise do. That hope for the amazing thing. If I just do this, this is the shortcut to wealth, riches, fame, that storybook ending, that Cinderella story, whatever it is. It's all because of that hope, because of that promise. We'll do things we wouldn't do otherwise. We'll get fooled simply because we're just convinced of the hope. And then once we're in it, it's hard to admit we make mistakes, or even before that, we would even be that person. So look, we've got to be honest with ourselves, and that's the key. We just have to be honest people in general, but with ourselves, which is sometimes the hardest person to be honest with, is ourselves. Whether that's we're on the side of we think we're awesome, we're way too high on ourselves when we're really not, or we're on the other side where we think we're terrible and we're all this and we're just not. And that's one of the tricky things about pride. Is pride, most people think of pride as, oh, I'm so awesome, blah, 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 blah. But pride can also be where you think lowly of yourself when you shouldn't be thinking of yourself in that way, right? All pride is an unwarranted focus on ourselves. It's elevating ourselves and our view of ourselves in our lives, whether that view is negative or positive. That's pride. Pride, the mother of all sins, as Augustine said. So, but we have to be honest of ourselves, honest about our failures, our flaws, but also where we're good, and that we could be fooled, that we could be in this situation, whatever that sort of thing is. Also, another great way to do it is surround yourself with people who will tell you the truth or help you. Another little Proverbs 12:15, it says, "The way of a fool is right in his own the way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but a wise man listens to advice." And that's it. In our own eyes, we could be fooled. We could fool ourselves. We could not think we'd be the person who would make that mistake, or even struggle to admit the mistakes when we're making them. Or we could get our hopes set on things that are false, or get pulled way out there for, in some sort of thing, thinking this is our fairy tale when all it is a con, whatever that sort of thing is. But if we have people around us who we trust and trust to be honest with us, they can look from an outside perspective and say, hey, you really need to not do this. Or hey, you really need to question. Or or this is way too good to be true. You've got to stop. Or you've got to just stop down this path. Whatever it is, hopefully you have those people in your lives. And a lot of us have friends, but do you have the kind of relationship where they would actually be honest with you? Do you open those doors to say, hey, call me out on being stupid? I may not like it, but I'll appreciate it, and that's important. Maybe at the moment, I won't want to hear it, but I promise I'm going to come back and thank you. And even if you're wrong, I want to hear it. And let's have that sort of relationship. So I think that's a big thing for us. We've got to be honest with ourselves. We've got to fight against pride and have a humility that looks at ourselves honestly. And part of that is honestly where we could make mistakes because we're just normal people. We all can get fooled. And especially when we're talking about Christianity, we can get pulled into some weird things within the church, outside of the church. And we've just got to be honest with ourselves. We've got to put pride aside, have a humble, correct view of ourselves, and surround ourselves with people, or at least a person or two who can call us out honestly on our crap, on our lies, or whatever it is. Because otherwise, again, the way of a fool, it can look right to us, but a wise man is the one who listens to advice. So that's what I have. Sad story for old Cecily. They arrested him. I mean, he's going to get out of jail. Hopefully the girl that he was kissing and lying to, saying it was all nonsense, isn't going to pay his bail or anything like that. Sad thing. Hopefully she bailed on that. But a little bit of a drama, interesting story, but I think that's valuable for us to learn from and say, whew, okay, how can I avoid that situation? Put pride aside, surround myself with people, and just be honest with myself, right? Well, hey, thank you again for taking the time to listen wherever and however you're listening to this. And as I go, man, 3515, and I will see you next time.